at these two paragraphs here. Vocabulary, context, how it could be used in a different context, etc. You guys know the drill.
The word influential.
Influential means like to influence, to make a difference or make a change based on your actions or your words. To change someone else's perspective or the way someone else acts or thinks because of how you act or what you say. Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Teacher, the words that autocratically
Mm-hmm.
is right.
Autocratically?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I just want to know its meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it means like to make their own decisions without anyone else. It's not down here. I thought it was going to be down. Oh, autocratic, dictatorial. Dictatorial or something, however you say that word. It's like to make your own decisions without regard to anyone else. So the king can say, this is the law, and nobody can say, no, it's not, right? They make all the rules and everyone has to follow them, like a dictator would be like an autocrat. Uh, and so that's what it's saying. And so King John, right, in this paragraph, it's talking about how they were telling him, making him sign that he can't be a dictator, he can't make all the rules by himself. Parliament, which is like the Britain's branch of government that helps make laws, has to make the laws. The king can't make them by himself. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, teacher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can use it in any context in which you're making rules. Like if you have the authority to make a rule. Yeah. Anything else?
Uh, Late Middle Ages.
Mm-hmm. The Middle Ages are a period of time. They'll probably be able to tell you because I can't remember what the dates are. The medieval period. Yeah, people will talk about medieval times or Middle Ages. It's like I can look up what the years are. In this case, it looks like it's 1200-ish. But it's sort of this time where uh, it's like in between, and like people will sometimes refer to it as like the Dark Ages, like where like there's not a lot of history that happens. Let me see if it will tell me the period. So between like the 5th century to the 15th century. Um and it's like before the beginning of like the Renaissance, when people were like very into art and starting to like create like um explore knowledge and science and like art and those types of things. It was like before all of that. Yeah, you could study more about it. I don't know a ton about it, um but it's like before the Renaissance time. Good question.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll keep moving along. Notorious, this word here, notorious means like well known in a bad way. You don't want to be notorious. People usually use it in a negative context. Yes. Okay, we'll do this section here. As far as basic human rights are concerned, they too were established in writing in Magna Carta. No free man shall be imprisoned unless by the lawful judgment of his peers or by the law of the land, it stated. To none will we, the monarch, sell, to none will we deny or delay right or justice. Magna Carta was the original Bill of Rights. Although it did not give power to the people in any modern sense of the word, it did limit the power of the king. It confirms the authority of Parliament and established for good one of the most important principles of regal or political power in England, namely that the power and authority of a leader to rule are subject to approval and permanent scrutiny of those over whom he rules. Any questions here? And if not, we'll just continue on.
I have
Yes.
scrutiny. Scrutiny. Yeah.
Scrutiny?
Yeah.
Yes, scrutiny. Scrutiny means to like analyze, to look very closely and judge. Yes. Mm-hmm. A good like figurative phrase that people will use sometimes, like they'll say like scrutinize, but sometimes they'll say um like looking under a microscope. It's like a figurative language phrase sometimes people will use to be like you're going to look really closely at something and analyze it and figure out like what you think about it. And so that could be a phrase that you use. From the chat, someone said regal. That just refers to like king or queen, like royalty. In a monarch, right? It's a king or queen that rules with like parliament or whatever other branch of government. And so it's just saying like a monarchy with a king or a queen, or just a political power, right? A different type of government that is politics. Regal can also mean, not in this context, but a different context, it can mean like still referring to royalty, but like rich or majestic or beautiful or fancy, right? Those can all be like regal things. Really like majestic would be a good synonym for like the adjective form of regal. But in this context, it's saying simply referring to like having a monarchy, a king or a queen. Any other questions?
Like the second paragraph,
Mm-hmm.
to none where we say. So what types of grammar uh, did it use?
Yes, very good question. It is not written very well, and then them adding in this explanation doesn't help. um so it says to none will we sell. And so it's using this like passive verb tense that's not great English, and it's probably written that way because the Magna Carta was written so many years ago. English has changed so much since then. And so some of these old documents you see more like uh, old English is what they call it. And so it's just like this different kind of type of English, even. And so what it's saying is to none will we sell, to none will we deny or delay right or justice. It's saying that like we will, and it says the monarch, it's saying that like they will not sell the to none will we sell. Like that the monarch can't make the sole decisions about like justice in a court of law. I'm not sure selling could to none will we sell. Like I'm not sure we the monarch like bribery is maybe what it's referring to. I'm not sure exactly why it's saying to sell, but to none will we deny or delay right or justice is saying that like the king or the queen cannot be the sole judge that they're or like sentence someone to prison, that it has to be judgment of his peers or the law of the land to be able to judge someone in a court of law. The king can't do that by himself like a dictator would be able to.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that's the best I can the best I can explain it. And then the grammar part is it's just very bad grammar for current modern day English. It's very old English. You would not write like that. You would say something like the monarch cannot sell, whatever that means, I guess take bribes maybe, and the monarch cannot delay justice or deny justice to its citizens. Yeah, that would be a much better modern day way to say it. All right, we'll keep moving. We'll do this paragraph here. In other words, Magna Carta served to banish forever from England any idea of the divine right of kings or absolute monarchy. On the few occasions since then when British monarchs have tried to override the limitations imposed on them by Magna Carta and subsequent constitutional acts, they have done so at their peril. When King Charles I was tempted by the attraction of absolute power in the 17th century, he had his head cut off and the monarchy was temporarily abolished. Any questions there?
Yeah, monarchy.
Monarchy just refers to a type of government where they have a king or queen as a ruler. So instead of a president or a prime minister, a monarchy has a king or a queen. And then in current times, like this article is saying, because of Magna Carta, you don't only have a king or a queen as the absolute monarch or the sole monarch, right? There is also a different branch of government in Britain is Parliament that helps make laws and constitutions and those types of things, so that the king and queen are not really the ones in charge. And I think really even now in Britain, as far as I understand, the king and queen are sort of like traditional versus like actually ruling the country in any way. Back then, they really did have some power, but yeah, it's just saying having a king or queen instead of like a president or prime minister or something else. Yeah.
Chess
Anything else?
on
Yeah.
the word Spanish and abolish.
Yes. Banish
It,
means to like get rid of forever. Banish, do they have it here? Remove. Yeah, remove, it's a good definition too. And then abolish means the same thing. To get rid of it, that it's not allowed anymore.
yes. So can we use this forget when things we don't want to keep? Uh, we can throw it, right? So we can use this forget
Okay,
to
so let me think.
mention our,
That's
yeah.
a great question. So if I'm not gonna like banish trash or abolish trash, right? If I'm getting rid, I'm just gonna throw that away. If I'm getting rid of like old clothes or old furniture or something, I'm not banishing them or abolishing them. That's just like getting rid of or throwing away or donating or whatever, or vocabulary words you'd use. Banish refers to like, and abolishing refers to like no longer allowing something conceptually or something on a very grand scale. So like in the United States during like our Civil War back when that happened. I can't remember the date right now. I'm not great with dates. Slavery, right, of Black Americans was abolished. Like it is no longer allowed in our country. And so like it was stopped and can't happen anymore. But that's like on a grand scale, right? I don't think really like any one person can abolish or banish something unless you have like great power, maybe, because it's like these grand, conceptual, really big, systematic things that you stop from happening. And banish is the same thing. Banish sort of has more of a like get rid of, though, of like you'll banish someone from like the kingdom or the nation, right? Like, or community, like you can't be a part of this community anymore. But yeah, it's like on this big scale. It's not something you would use in like every day. I'm getting rid of something or stopping something. Now, I do, okay, sometimes I have to talk a little bit and then it makes a little bit more sense. I guess you could use it in a more everyday term as long as it's like still like getting rid of completely of like, I'm gonna banish. This would maybe stretching it a little bit. You're not gonna hear this a lot, but it could apply. Like, I'm gonna banish cell phones from my classroom or abolish cell phones from my classroom. Like, nobody can have them, right? You could use it like that. That's not probably very common. You would probably just say, I wouldn't allow it. But you probably could use it because it means like to get rid of on a grand scale. But yeah, mainly I hear it with like abolish slavery or banish, the throne or like some big thing. That's a good question.
Thank you, teacher.
Yeah. It's so funny how like when you grow up speaking English, you just like know these things from like reading and context and just your life. And then like when you actually think about it, it's like, oh, I don't really know the definition of these words. I just use them. It's kind of funny. Any other questions?
How about peril? Peril.
Yes, peril. That means like danger. Yeah, if you're in peril, then you're in danger for your life.
By the way, what does it mean? Divine right of kings. Divine?
Yes.
Or
Oh, good. Yeah, divine.
divine.
Divine means from God. And the right is like, how do you define the right? Like you have a right to do something. You have a God-given right. How do you define right? Like it's not your ability to do something, it's that you should be allowed to do it. That there's something innate in you, right? That like you're like your right to live and your right to take care of yourself and your right to have a family and like these things that are just you should be allowed to do, that is just a part of being a human being. um your right to safety, all those things. And so it's just saying a God-given right. And so there used to be this idea that a king was put in authority over a nation by God. And so therefore everyone had to listen to what the king said. The Magna Carta helped people understand that's not necessarily true, and that they needed other parts of the government to make laws. God wasn't necessarily putting their kings in place for them to be dictators over the people. And so just saying divine right of kings is like God gave them the right to rule, or that idea is absolute monarchy, that everybody has to obey the monarch or the king or the queen. And so that's just what it's referring to. And the Magna Carta banished or got rid of that idea. And people don't think that anymore. Okay, any other questions? All right, we'll keep moving. Let's do these two paragraphs here. It says, a fact that is often forgotten nowadays is that England was one of the first nations to become a republic in modern times. Charles I was replaced by a commoner called Oliver Cromwell, and England became a commonwealth, which is a vague translation of the Latin expression respublica, more normally translated as republic. The republic lasted only 11 years, after which Parliament reinstated the monarchy. But 29 years later, the power of the monarch was again restricted, and the rights of Parliament and the people were reaffirmed in the English Bill of Rights in 1689. Transferred into the language of 18th century America, the principles of Magna Carta and the English Bill of Rights were taken one step further when the United States Constitution totally separated the three sides of power: executive power, the president; legislative power, Congress; and judicial power, the Supreme Court. Any questions here?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first sentence, like a fact that is often forgotten nowadays is that England was one of the first nations to become a republic in modern times. So like England didn't England wasn't be a first nation, right?
Correct. It was not the first nation. It was the first, one of the first, anyways, nations to become a republic where they have some type of leader and some type of lawmaking committee. And the two work together and balance each other. Yes.
What is that translation?
Yes, vague
Re-
translation. I'll define that in 1 second. I wanted to add on to the previous question. In modern times, like way back when the Roman Empire was a republic for a while, and there were like some other empires way back in like ancient history that were republics. So I just wanted to clarify that. England was one of the first nations in modern times to be a republic, having that like leader and lawmaking branch of government. Okay, vague translation. Vague means like not clear, that is just kind of general. And then translation is just like translating one language into another language, right? And so it's just saying it's a general translation. It's not a very accurate or clear translation. It just gives you kind of a general idea of what that word means in the other language. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Teacher, for me, I want to know that forget was it was writing in bold letter, restated,
Reinstated.
reinstated. Yeah.
Yes. They define it as, where is it? This is not in put back in place. Reinstate, put back in place. Yeah, that's a great definition. Put back in place. So to instate means to like establish or set in place, right? That this is how things go. And then re means again. So it's that you're doing it again. Mm-hmm. So they got rid of the king or queen, and then they put the king and queen back in authority.
What does it reaffirmed mean?
Reaffirmed.
Yeah.
Re means again, the prefix, and then affirmed. Affirm means to like say this is correct, to like agree. And but not just like agree, yes, agree, but also like this is the right way. We all agree that this is correct. And so it's just saying that they're all affirming again that yes, there needs to be a parliament. It shouldn't just be a king or queen making laws. Parliament also needs to help make laws. And yes, the people should have a say in how those laws are made. We're going to reaffirm that. Say, yes, we agree that it should be the rule. Good question. Anything else? Okay, we'll do our last paragraph here. In the course of the centuries, the bold democratic principles originating in Magna Carta have too often been neglected in individual cases, but at least they had the merit of existing. That's a hilarious statement. Sorry. But at least they had the merit of existing, and generally speaking, they have underlined law in the English-speaking countries ever since. It is a pity that even in Britain or the USA, there are politicians today who do not believe in all the democratic values that have guided our history for many generations. I laugh at this part because it's saying that defending people's rights and having a government that makes good laws for its citizens, that is our principles that have originated in this document, Magna Carta, have been neglected or have not been upheld or followed in individual cases. But then they say, but at least they had the merit of existing. So they're just saying, but at least someone somewhere said it once, like as if like just simply existing is somehow helping the world, even if nobody's going to follow those rules. And so that just made me laugh because it's like just writing something down and having one person say it somewhere has no impact on the world. People have to agree and then follow those rules for it to impact the world. Anyways, it just made me laugh. It's very funny. It's kind of like ironic. Okay, any questions here?
Miss Rose, can I ask the previous part of the
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
What does it mean legislative power Congress?
Yes. Legislative.
Legislative.
Good job sounding it out because usually the G does make the G sound. So legislative power Congress. So the United States, our government has three branches of power, like people who make decisions, right? So our executive power is the president. Executive often refers to like top people in like companies who like make decisions and are over the whole company. And so it's just referring to like the people who are making decisions in our government. So the president's executive branch, and he makes decisions and has certain amounts of power. And then our legislative power or our legislative branch is Congress, as Congress is divided up into our Senate and our House of Representatives, and they have a certain amount of responsibility about what laws they make. And it's like based on how many people live where in the US and which state. And so our Senate has a certain amount of people from each state, and our House of Representative has a certain amount of people like based on population numbers, and then they make decisions and make laws. And then the judicial power is the third branch, and they're the like Supreme Court. They are essentially the judges of the land. And so they judge the law or interpret the law. And so it's a simplified version, is just that not one branch can make a law. They all have to agree that the law is a good thing for the law to pass. So like the Senate might come up with a law, but then the House of Representatives says, no, this is a bad idea. So then it doesn't become a law. Or the Senate and the House of Representatives, Congress says, yeah, this is a great law. And the president says, no, this is not a good idea. Or the Supreme Court says no. And so all three of them have to agree for something to become a law. More complicated than that in a lot of ways, but that's just like a simple understanding of like the three different branches. Yeah.
It's like the people can just request what they need or what they want to the president or to the government, like that.
Yes, in a more conceptual way. So each individual citizen can't necessarily we can talk, like, write to the president or whatever, or call his secretary people. But like each individual person isn't necessarily talking to the president. But instead, we have representatives. So I can't remember. It's like it depends on your population numbers. So bigger states have like 4 or 5 people in Congress, and small states have like 2 or 3 people in Congress. And then those 4 or 5 or 2 or 3 individuals will make decisions based on their entire state. And then it gets more complicated than that, because then we have like our voting process where we'll like vote on whether a law should be passed or not. But the representatives will take that information from the voting to make their own voting decisions. So it gets more complicated, but just like, yes, the simple understanding is just that they are making decisions for the whole state or the whole amount of population that they are representing. And then all three together have to agree in order for the law to be passed. Yeah. And then if someone breaks the law, the Supreme Court helps interpret what that law means. Yeah. Good question. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. I'll stop sharing my screen there. Looking at the time, we will not have time today to go to our next article, but I will be here tomorrow. But I did want to ask you guys for tomorrow, have we done, I gotta figure out how to do this. I'm gonna share my screen one more time. Have we done this article? I'm gonna show it to you guys. About Thanksgiving before. It's coming up here. I didn't want to do it again. I thought it'd be interesting to talk about Thanksgiving since that's coming up in the US, but I didn't want to do it if I've already read it with you guys. Have we done this one yet? Does anyone remember?
No.
Okay. All right. We'll do this one tomorrow then. Okay. Sounds good. I didn't want to waste your time tomorrow if it was like, we just talked about this. I'm gonna need to, I've said this a couple times, I need to write it down or I'm just gonna keep forgetting. Thank you for helping me.